After working in the European property markets for 20 years, I am now entering my 4th year in Asia. One thing I have learned is that the property markets out here don't stand still for very long. 2009 was an earth-scorching bust, with values falling by up to 60%. 2010 enjoyed a rapid recovery, with office rents rising by 40% in some markets. The 2010 trend of growing confidence, values and deal volumes continued for the first 6 months of 2011, but then something changed. The US budget standoff, followed by relentlessly scary headlines from Euroland, and growing whispers about residential bubbles in China spooked real estate occupiers and investors, and the mood changed from ebullience to caution. Deals slowed down, and rents in the markets with greatest international exposure, Hong Kong and Singapore, started to come off the boil. So we start 2012 with a mood of cautious optimism. Cautious because we know events in Europe would affect Asia, but optimism because the fundamentals in the Asia-Pacific region are solid. If you spend any time in Asia-Pacific, you begin to realize that it's all about China. India is a relatively closed economy, but China is where the Japanese sell their cars, the Australians sell their minerals, the Indonesians sell their coal, and those from Hong Kong sell their services. If China were to catch a sniffle, Asia would contract pneumonia. People out here mostly worry about economic events in Europe and the US to the extent that these events may affect trade, especially trade with China. If the West can't buy Chinese goods, the Chinese can't buy goods and services from neighbouring countries in Asia-Pacific. Apart from this linkage, Asians are generally slightly dismissive of the pantomime around the euro. The general attitude to the UK is somewhat different. For all sorts of historical and economic reasons, the UK, especially London, is seen by Asian investors as a safe haven and a good place to park some cash into property, both commercial and residential. We have dedicated teams based in Asia-Pacific who specialise in connecting UK property sales with Asian buyers. We recently sold a prime commercial asset in London, which was about 15 times oversubscribed with bids, about half of which we found here in Asia. Since coming together with King Sturge in the UK, we are also now a leader in selling UK residential projects in Asia. And last month, we added to this strength by acquiring a specialist international sales business in Singapore called DST. So if 2011 was a game of two halves for the property markets of Asia-Pacific, then making any predictions for 2012 is difficult, given the prevailing uncertainties. But here are a few trends to look out for in Asia-Pacific. China will continue to grow. There is a slowdown in the residential sector because that was what the Chinese government wanted and engineered. If they want a recovery in 2012, that is what will happen. There may be pockets of market weakness, especially in markets that are financial services hubs, but the property markets in Asia-Pacific will continue to perform relatively well. Asian companies are still growing and hiring. Western companies want to sell more products and services to Asian buyers and still want to invest. Western companies also want to reduce their costs by outsourcing to low-cost countries in Asia like India, the Philippines and Vietnam. All these factors create demand for space. On the investment side, cash-rich Asian investors, as well as Western investors seeking growth, will support asset prices, aided by a generally supportive banking sector. Asian institutional and private buyers will continue to seek diversification into international safe havens like London. One Indonesian investor recently explained to me that he viewed a well-let London office investment as gold with a dividend. There are, of course, all sorts of short and medium-term risks to progress in Asia, both economic and political. We, however, see 2012 as just another step in a long-term trend of relatively strong growth in the property markets of Asia-Pacific. Jones Lang LaSalle now has 10,000 employees in China and India, and another 10,000 across the rest of Asia Pacific. One prediction I can make with total confidence is that we will be very busy helping our clients navigate their way through 2012. I wish you all a prosperous year ahead.